No Fake Plus.
On day 70 of the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, a message surfaced that immediately pulled attention in a new direction. It did not go to investigators. It did not arrive through an official tip line. It didn't even reach the FBI first. Instead, it landed in the inbox of a media outlet, and the claim inside it was simple, direct and impossible to ignore. Nancy Guthrie, the sender, wrote, was dead. The timing of that message matters. It appeared the same morning her daughter, Savannah, returned to national television after weeks away. That return alone was enough to bring the case back into the spotlight. And at that exact moment, a new voice stepped in. Not through law enforcement, through media. Reports indicate this wasn't the sender's first attempted contact. Messages had allegedly been sent for weeks, going back to early February. But on this day, 2 emails arrived within hours of each other. And together they created a problem. They didn't tell the same story. The first message claimed Nancy was no longer alive. It said the sender knew where her body could be found. It also claimed knowledge of who was responsible and where they were now. But that information came with a condition: payment half a Bitcoin. Roughly $35,000 at first. That number might sound serious. But compared to earlier demands connected to this case, it tells a different story. The earliest reported ransom request was in the millions. Then it dropped significantly. And now it had fallen again. Each message lowered the price. That pattern raises a difficult question. If someone truly holds critical information, why does the value keep shrinking? Mark, the sender, tried to explain. They claimed they were not involved in the crime. They described themselves as someone living abroad, disconnected from the situation. The money, they said, was not about profit, but about starting over. But even that explanation creates doubt. People with real urgent information don't usually negotiate it. They report it then just hours later. A second message arrived this time. The story changed completely. According to the same sender, Nancy had been seen alive in Sonora. Mexico, that location is close enough to feel believable. It borders Arizona and sits within reachable distance from Tucson. But the contradiction was immediate. One message said she was dead. The next said she was alive. Those 2 claims cannot exist together, and that inconsistency quickly became the central issue. Experts who reviewed the situation pointed to several red flags. The timing didn't align with how credible information is typically shared. Real witnesses usually contact law enforcement, not media outlets. The contradiction itself weakened everything. And the use of Bitcoin requested through a third party added another layer of doubt. Meanwhile, the outlet receiving these messages described the sender as persistent. Contact had continued for weeks. But despite that, there has been no visible shift in the investigation. Tied to these claims, no confirmed searches in the locations mentioned. No arrests connected to the information. No indication authorities consider it actionable. The Bitcoin wallet provided also showed no activity. No transactions, no engagement. That suggests something important. No one appears convinced enough to respond. At this point, the issue is no longer just what the messages claim. It's how those claims hold up under pressure. And when examined closely, they begin to collapse, because this case is not built on emails. It is built on what happened in the first hours, long before the messages, before the speculation. Before the headlines, there was a house in Tucson. There was an elderly woman with serious medical needs. There was a normal routine. And then sometime after Nancy returned home on January 31st. That routine broke by the next morning. This was no longer treated as a simple missing person case. Investigators were looking at a possible abduction. That shift didn't happen randomly. It happened because of what the scene revealed. A masked individual was captured on doorbell footage, tampering with a camera. That camera was disabled around the same time. Nancy's pacemaker connection stopped transmitting. Her phone and purse were left behind. A back door was found open. Blood later identified as hers was discovered on the porch. This is not the pattern of someone who chose to leave. It is the pattern of interruption, of control, and that is where the real focus remains. Because while messages change, those facts do not. The investigation has continued to circle back to tangible evidence. Surveillance devices, physical traces. Items like a glove found near the home, analyzed but not matched, thousands of tips reviewed. Most leading nowhere footage examined again and again. This is what real investigations look like. when they don't resolve quickly. Not dramatic breakthroughs, but slow narrowing testing, eliminating rechecking. And while all of that continues, the public conversation moves differently. It follows the loudest claim. The newest theory, the most emotional version of events. That's how cases become unstable in the public mind. Not because there are no facts, but because those facts are forced to compete with noise. The messages claiming Nancy is dead pull everything in one direction. The claims she was seen alive pull everything in another. And the truth, whatever it is, gets buried somewhere in between. But the beginning hasn't changed. A masked person approached the home. The camera was disabled. Her monitoring system went silent. Her belongings were left behind. The scene showed signs of force. Those details have remained steady from the start. They don't contradict themselves. They don't shift with attention. And that's what separates them from everything that came later. Because information that is real tends to become clearer over time. Information that isn't tends to unravel. Right now, the investigation is still anchored to that narrow window. That night, that house. That moment when something happened that has not yet been fully explained. Every theory, every message, every claim has to pass through that same filter. Does it explain what happened inside that house? Or does it simply distract from it? Because in cases like this, distraction is not harmless. It costs time, it shifts focus. It pulls attention away from the details that actually matter. And time in an investigation like this is everything. For the public, this case feels like movement. Headlines, you need updates, new claims, but for investigators, it often feels like standing still, while carefully eliminating what doesn't fit. And that gap between perception and reality is where confusion grows. Because the truth doesn't usually arrive as a headline. It builds quietly, piece by piece, until one detail finally connects what the others could not. Until then, everything else is just noise competing for attention. And right now, there is a lot of noise. But underneath all of it, the same questions remain. What happened in that house? Who was at that door? And where is Nancy Guthrie? For the public, that creates frustration. For investigators, pressure. But for the family, it creates something much heavier, waiting. Waiting for something that doesn't change. Because noise can fill the space. Waiting for something real. And until that truth is found, but it cannot resolve it, only truth can. The case remains exactly where it is now, unresolved, uncertain, and still open.